We are live. Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. Many of you are watching from the country or around the world, and I appreciate all of you for doing that. And welcome to the late night special. I will be talking about different things from the week and also things with the different topics that I go over with the trials and we're going to talk about Planet 10 again and different things like that. Alright, so as I usually do, I play a game in the beginning while I talk about the topics, and then later on I do the articles. So here we go. Alright, hello. I am putting the screen down. Alright, so hello everybody, I am here, and this is some light so you all can see me. And also now what I'm going to do is going to start the game and talk for a little bit while I play the game about the different topics I talk about with the trials and different things that I look over during the week, and then go into the articles and see, and just go from there. Alright. So I hope all of you have been having a good week. Those they're watching the rerun or watching it live. I appreciate all of you, and it's gonna connect. It's connecting, so I have the game connecting. Hello, Matt. Good to see you. Welcome. I'm glad that you're able to make it and tell me and everybody else hello. All right. So basically, now what I'm doing is I have the pirate game. It's about to launch. And Matt, I hope that your week has been going well for you. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna be switching over to the other screens. You all can see the game. Perfect. Okay. Then I'm going to bring this window up here. Ah. Oh, okay. Thanks for telling me about that, Matt. Yeah, that does sound like... I'm sure they are very tired. I'm sure. Yeah, today what I did was I cut the front grass. Also, I helped my grandpa with his grass too. And today I was watching the trials and looking at Chad Daybell today, and he was cringe. And also, everybody, I may repeat certain things as I go throughout the stream with different groups that come through. I will tell them what's going on. And so anyway, basically, Matt says at least it was dry heat. But yeah, because yesterday, Matt, I was talking to Amanda and the others in the chat, and we were talking about how it's very, like, over there, out west, the heat's very dry, and she was saying she's used to the dry heat. Because out here where I am, it's humid. It's 96% humidity here. It's very, very hot here with the humidity. It makes the weather intense. And also today I was watching, Chad Daybell, Chad Cringebell, he was, as I said, he's a cult leader, and he had his ex-wife deleted, and he also had his new wife's kids deleted for his cult. But really what it was, he just had ambitions. and wanted to get rid of his ex-wife and things like that. That's what it really had to do with. And looking more today with his philosophies in his book, and how the new wife he had was a goddess, and they were sent from different parts of heavens, these different heavens and things. It's like it's a load of nonsense, but it's mass brainwashing. When you brainwash the different people to do what you want them to do. And it's good that the jury sees that, and they will certainly see he's cringe and find him guilty, hopefully, when the time comes to sentence him. And this was over in Idaho, so it's dry heat over there. And Chad Daybell's a real dry person. But he's still as cringe as humidity. Right. He's a wacko indeed. He's like Charles Manson. Absolutely just like him. I could see why people are skeptical about joining things like what he did, because look at the trouble and problems he caused. And he, they're talking about the pet cemetery, and one of my friends was like, they thought the pet cemetery was creepy. Now, sometimes like people have pets, they'll have a little area in the yard. People that have the yard will bury the pets there, which in my opinion, if people want to do that, which we have that here, I think it's okay. But what Chad Daybell did was he's burying people there. That's not good. That guy was a wacko. Like, that he was doing nefarious things, apparently also to raccoons, and to he was just bad all around. So he just is really an evil person. And another thing about Chad Daybell is that he was recently, a couple of weeks ago, he was banned from portals because he was using portals a lot to do these different things he was doing. And out in space and the other dimensions, the aliens, the Galactic Senate banned him from going to different portals. I passed a portal today, and when I passed up the portals, I saw that it said no Chad or Pryor allowed. Matt is saying some cool things in the chat I'll read. So we're saying Daybell also worked for the Daybell, he means, worked for the U.S. government under the MK Ultra program. LOL. And not the raccoons, yeah, because it's people doing things to harm people or animals for no reason. That's not good. And also, I think that the testimonies, the witnesses are excellent. And Pryor is just being a buffoon. He's being cringe, and he's real rude to the witnesses and to the judge. And he doesn't even say Your Honor. He says Judge. He doesn't have proper conduct, equity to him. And so they're two peas in a pot. And I called Chad Daybell out, and I'm like, you need to stop flirting with, I told him he needs to stop flirting with Pryor in those portals, because he needs to accept what he did, but he doesn't want to do that. And there's emotional testimonies about what happened, and like people that Tammy's sister and other relatives, like brother, things like that, talking about her, and it was emotional for them, but they were saying she's a very sweet, amazing lady, and this monster goes and destroys everything. And I remember how, like, a couple of trials ago, he was talking about, they're showing it, how he was acting emotionally unstable when she was having her problem, but it's like he had inauthentic emotion, like Ted Bundy did, and basically, like, like Ted Bundy would be like, they asked him if he's angry, and he said, I'm angry right now, and he starts beating his chest. It's like, people, that's like what Chad was doing. He had inauthentic emotions, and he was just, rumor too, right? And how, basically, with Chad he he had these inauthentic emotions when Tammy was having her problems, when she was dying, because he's a bad actor, and he was clearly debunked what he was doing. That it wasn't an accident. It wasn't her just of natural causes. He did something, and then Lori Vallow Daybell really believes that what she did was good, and that she's did something righteous, and it's like it's not. It's a deception, and so as I said, it's good that the state and then the witnesses are exposing him, and he will be brought to shame. In the end, he's extremely guilty. And another one I was looking at was about, which is a very hot bucket, not a hot bucket, but a hot button topic about the situation with the treadmill trial with the kid that was deleted because of his abusive father. And he has a crocodile eyes, and when he tries to cry, nothing comes out. And basically, his lawyer is stupid too. And I understand the cases the clients they're trying to defend have no chance, but they're acting extremely dumb. Yeah, it'll now henceforth be known as hot bucket topics. Hilarious. And also another thing was he has an angry look, and the grandmother was testifying, and was talking about it, and she seemed in denial about the situation. Certainly, and a lot of people get like that. They get denial about what people do. Oh, this guy can't do something like that, but actually they can do something like that. And there's some mix up with next week they're gonna do it, but it came tomorrow, the day before. So I was right about it being next week, but they went one more day before they took off for the week. And I'm keeping up with quite a few of them. Another one with that Karen Reed. Yeah, she basically, there's this dispute about if she's guilty or not, if she did it intentionally. She could have been accidentally drunk, but it doesn't really look too good. But that one, there's more of a split opinion. Her boyfriend was a police officer, and she was drunk and hit him with the vehicle and deleted him in the snow. And they're saying with her defense is saying it was a cover up for something the police did to him. And then they're saying that she either did it intentionally because they're having problems and she was just nuts, or she did it by mistake because she would go wait 5 a.m. to go look for him after all that time of just doing what. And so yeah, it's just that one is another situation that's up in the air, and they're talking to one of the witnesses about the situation with her headache, and if that could have warped her judgment because it causes pain. And it's kind of yeah, those migraines can be painful, which I know about that. And then they're just that she was praying for it to go away, and it was just, that's what she was focused on most. And they're trying to, steer it and make a point, steering it in a direction they want the jury to think. And they show the house. It was really snowy. I haven't had snow like that down here in ages, and it was going outside, seeing what was going on. And there's, a couple of camera footage. surveillance footage of outside in the location, like in the snow, and her by the vehicle, and Karen. And also there's some videos of the bar, inside the bar. So that's just going back and forth, and that judge seems kind of grumpy in my opinion. And some people believe that judge is a bias. And so that is, we'll see how that goes, and trials are continuing. Same thing with the other trial with YSL. That is a hot bucket topic. For sure. Because the state of Georgia, which last night I was talking about this a little bit with another group on the phone live, and basically we were talking about how the state of Georgia is very corrupted. I know some people in Georgia, and also people that know things that's going on in general with that situation. And basically the DA seems like they're twisting things around, and they're trying to make points about the rapper Young Thug if he was involved in gang activity. And it's just the people in the chat like him and think he's innocent, and I agree with that. And because people could like do their art, rap and stuff, and not be involved in those things, but it's just the defense is doing good, but the DA is just really cringe. And like, as I said, they seem like they lie. There's a strong bias, and even if somebody's guilty of something, like say he is guilty, having a bias about it and twisting everything around against him is really foul play, in my opinion. If he's really guilty, like, what do you have to hide about it? Okay, Matt. Okay, thanks. And also, basically, with YSL, it was a music group. It's a music group, and they have like the different people. Like, for instance, that we've been having recently witnesses on the stand the past few months, and like they don't remember anything. And there's like a recording of them like snitching or doing something or saying something, and they just don't remember it. It was a long time ago. It was in 2013, but still, the person, they don't remember it. And then what happens next is eventually the guy, he was in one of the days, like his last time, he was saying he was high and he was about to go to sleep on him, and he needed some water, and they gave him some water. And yeah, it's funny, just he doesn't remember anything, and the other people don't remember anything. And as I said, maybe they don't want to remember it, or it was a long time ago. That's really something else. It's funny. It's really entertaining, and you have this situation with YSO where they played some of the music videos, and they're talking to one of the police people, and he were like, "Do you like?" It was a black guy. It was like, I don't remember his name, but I remember he was specifically a black guy. And they were like, do you like rap? He's like, yeah, he likes rap, and he even listened to Young Thug before. And like, they're trying to get the police information about certain things that happened. Like, they'll show some footage, some security footage of something, or a music video, and the prosecution will try to make it look like that they were involved in something, but it doesn't really seem to make any sense. So, like, if there really is a case for it and they really were doing something bad, they could have done a much better job of it. And the judge seems to have some sort of a bias, too. And he just, there's a lot of inappropriate actions and poor conduct from the judge and the DA. And, yeah, the defense is just doing its job, being a defense. And that took a break for the week. And, like, the judge gets frustrated, and there is a lot of fighting. And there's a lot of pressure. The judge is under a lot of pressure. And, and there's a lack of communication. And Miss Love, she's very cringe. The DA, she's very cringe. And she's, like, she's the best. and it's a lot of hot buckets in there. Yeah, I agree. It is Diddy's fault. Absolutely. And because it's like his existence in general makes him guilty, and like yeah, he certainly had, in my opinion, something to do with it. And I remember, chat, like the chat will be wild. Like we'll all like joke around and talk about different things, and like roast them. It's hilarious. Yeah, hot buckets for days. And another situation that happened was today. I'm pressing the wrong button in the game, so it's causing a situation where it caused me to stall. So as I was saying, one of the other days, going back to the Chad Daybell trial, there's a lot of information, hours of information. What happened with Chad was this other one, JSI, and I, like, she was like she was roasting him, and it reminded me of rap. So I start rapping in the chat, and then we both started rapping about him, and we both roasted him. And it was funny, and everybody was like, we should collaborate, and that was hilarious. Because it's like, it just gets heated. And when Chad acts stupid, his career is finished in the chat and everywhere. And then I was cracking some jokes about the situation, and I told one of my friends, yeah, he said, as long as I'm not a zombie, it's okay to have the pet cemetery. And basically, and they sunk me out of nowhere. That sucks. And I didn't even know where that came from. I was trying to get away from it, but it didn't work. Yeah, but we're making like I was telling him today that I'm an alien zombie and he needs to sleep with one eye open. Sounds like a race. Get him. Yeah, and I was trying to get away from that and it didn't work. So, yeah. I have to repair this ship. Let's do this again. Oh, that triggered me. Yeah, so anyway, they had this situation where, you know, we were talking about that, in the chat about, roasting Chad and having a good time doing that. And then what happened was I went and continued to say some jokes about the situation throughout the day, and it was nice. It went well. So throughout the week, it's been going very good. So I like how people can come together because I like politics, but I do believe that it divides people a lot, and it's nice seeing people with different political views and things come together. I like that because then I just kind of think that these things are put there to cause division in the first place. And I was saying in the chat about Chad Daybell from my Christian perspective, I think he's a false prophet, a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what I think Chad Daybell is pretty much. People are put off by him, and those are the different trials I'm keeping up with, and I like joking around with the friends and coming up with different pranks and stuff. Like, what I mean by that is we talk about things with, like, we will roast Chad. That's it's funny. And sometimes there's trolls and just people are being stupid. Dumb as a bag of potatoes in their basement. And another thing, so that's what was going on with the trials in general. So another thing I want to mention is Planet 10. So that's a planet that I talk about periodically on the channel, and the ads for it, which I've turned the ads back on for it, and they're going very good, and a lot of people are seeing it and coming to the channel that way also. And oh yeah, absolutely, Matt, absolutely. And basically, what like much like Hitler, trolls are real jerks. Exactly. Just like what Hitler and the Nazis did, how they were very against people and they're trolling. Yeah, absolutely, I totally agree. It's the same type of situation. I like that comparison. And so Planet 10, Matt, is this planet that's alleged, which it's a conspiracy theory, and there's speculation about it. And so there's a planet that's allegedly, which I believe is there. So there's this planet outside our solar system, way out there. It's classified under the objects beyond Neptune. And with the objects beyond Neptune, there's a couple of different asteroids and little dwarf planets and things, and there's this gigantic red planet that's way out there. And for many years, it's been seen as a conspiracy theory, as something that doesn't hold any scientific weight to it. And a lot of experts said it wasn't true, but then again, it was kind of true. And so that's what was going on. And what I did was, my friend and I that used to talk about aliens with each other back at school, we used to research it and tell people about it. And there wasn't a lot of scientific things to support it at the time, but we believed in it. And as time went on, there's more articles coming out, like 10 years ago. That was like 2015, 2014, things like that, around that era. And basically what happened was the planet would go and orbit our solar system at some point every few thousand years, something like that. And that's what they're thinking. And then scientific articles start to come out that it's likely there. And now they're coming out with even more articles throughout the recent years, 2017 and recently the past month, about it, that they're going to have this giant observatorium to go and detect where it is with this more powerful telescope to go and see it, because there's some movement. There's moons orbiting something beyond Neptune. So there you go. This is another theory that was proven correct. And basically, in my opinion, it is there. And They didn't want people knowing about it because it could orbit the planet and it could cause people, it could maybe cause a problem or it could do something with weather. And they didn't want people to be freaked out or scared, so they wanted people to think that it's not really there and talk about the tinfoil hat wearers and stuff. But not saying every conspiracy theory is true, but that one I believe is, and it seems like it's now holding weight because they hid it, they suppressed it. And this gentleman named Lowell that was monitoring the different planets and things, he passed away of a heart attack at some point in the past, and then he was able to not he wasn't able to go and detect that planet, and it was just a mystery. But there is something there in the word Nibiru. It comes from it's like Babylonian astronomy. It's one of their gods. How like the Greeks, we have Jupiter and Pluto and Neptune and things like that. That was one of their things. So, and that was interesting because I learned more from people on YouTube that I came in contact with, and a lot of people like the video and the ads. I have a couple of videos about it. The one I'm specifically talking about is called Planet 9 Conspiracy Theory. That's the title of the video. So I'm glad that the truth about that's coming out and other theories, and it's good for, seeing the things about aliens, that's also having more, being investigated more. Also, and with the modern technology, they can't hide these things for much longer. So they eventually come out and say that it was true. I think that, so that's why my decision was to always be open-minded to different ideas and not be dogmatic about things. Because you never know, you could be wrong, or maybe something could be real. Because I remember from a lot of movies, somebody was talking about something was going to happen, no one believed them, and then it happened. Like in Noah, that story, maybe people don't believe in that it was true or believe in God, but like it's an interesting parable, and it's also a good lesson to it. And like nobody listened to him, and although those people were doomed because of the flood, still you have people that were like wouldn't take him seriously because he was preparing for a flood. And the Noah story really goes back to India somewhere. It has origins to one of those religions about a great flood and about the ark and all. It's interesting. It's in other religions too. Yes, Matt. Yes, indeed. Matt, you always make things funny, and I like that. It's nice having you around. And, because humor is good, I think laughter is the best medicine. And I like the ideas from you and other people that are funny, like myself. And it's also learning from other people, because I believe teamwork is not done by one person, but a group of people. So I think, somebody could learn something from everybody else. So that's why, I like learning things from different people and how people do things. And also, I think that you can learn something from everything and life experiences in general. And I like how, that was a great experience for me about that planet. And that the alien stuff, that I took the risk of being his friend and learning stuff from him, and it really shaped who I am now. Hey Adam, good to see you. Welcome to the game. Welcome to the stream. So, what I'm playing is a game called Pirates of the Caribbean Online. And it's about, the Pirates of the Caribbean game, and it's just kind of going through the high seas and attacking ships and getting the plunder from it. And there's other quests and things you could do in the game, but I usually do those when I'm not playing the game. That doesn't make any sense when I'm not in the stream. Which I've not really played the game off stream in a long time. I haven't done that in a while. But, so, Oh, you haven't played that in a minute. Yeah, it's a good game. And you see, basically what happened was Disney took this one down and they put up another one. Because they want to make apps like Where's My Water, but about the low seas. What about the low seas? So yeah, so basically they want to make apps. This was the video at the time that I saw the explanation, which was over a decade ago. They want to make apps like Where's My Water, and they took down Pirates of the Caribbean Online, the original. So this is a newer version of it that some fans made. Because I had one before, and I was a high-ranking Marine in the game. Sailing. I used to do things like you could do a thing where you could play as France or Spain, and you can take over different. You could fight other players by being either Spain or France, and then you could go and do that, and go from there, and then you get different rankings in the game. So I was high ranking in the game, but they destroyed the whole game. So this is the new game, but it's basically the same thing. And I have to get something. Really quick, but I'm like going right over there. I have to get something. So yeah, but that's basically what's going on, with that game. I'm back. Yeah. So basically, I with the because yeah, I think it was wrong for them to take down the old game, but although this one's pretty cool too, and get to meet and talk to different people and stuff like that, it's a good experience. And basically, in the situation that I think I got the wrong ones, I'll be right back again. I know he just got here, but yeah. So basically, I was talking about Planet 10 and that planet that's out in the solar system that they were hiding for many years, and eventually they brought it. They are saying now it's most likely true, and just going back here. All right. Yeah, Planet X. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you for your patience. All right. So change these. Okay. Some cat hair in there. All right. I am fully back now. All right. So anyway, basically, now I'm playing the game, and this island, get a sword out, and you go fight these little things. All right. Matt says Uranus has deep secrets too. Funny. And Adam says they may downgrade that from a planet the way they did with Pluto. Oh yeah, because basically another thing about Pluto.
Pluto will always be a planet.
Yeah, Pluto is a planet, and basically with Pluto, they another thing about Pluto, the reason why it's called Planet 9, because it was originally called Planet 10, Planet X, but they don't want to admit that they were wrong, so they're going to call it Planet 9. Just like with UAPs. They don't call it UAPs anymore. They don't call it UFOs anymore. They call it UAP because they want it to dissociate from what it originally was called. And that's a cringe situation because like they lied about it and they're twisting the truth. Hey Duke, good to see you. I'm ending the career with this triple pistol right here. This giant thing. Alright, yeah. Yeah, good to see you, Duke. And, because I was, thinking that, yeah, because he was saying, they might try to downgrade it. Now, the Planet 10 is very big from what it's supposed to be very big. So it'll be interesting to see if it is big and they name it and they say that it's some sort of a other thing. It's like a dwarf or something. And there's a lot of planets beyond Neptune, and they cause a lot of deception about it and lies. And that's why it's good to do your own research and take everything with a grain of salt, in my opinion. The end is nigh. The hollow moon theory. Adam, I am... Yes, like Lizzo. Yes, Matt. Yeah. Okay, so Adam, I think there could be some... that it's possible. And I'm not completely familiar with that one, but I've heard of it. And a little bit after, when I get into the other stuff, I can go and look that one up. But basically, there is a situation when they were going... Now, there's dispute about people who have a dispute about if they went to the moon or not. And that will be for another... that's kind of like another topic in itself. But basically, what happened was... when they went to the moon, they heard these very strange noises coming from the moon. And it sounded like a person or something screeching. And basically, when the person was screeching... Alright, because the game's being goofy. Alright, there we go. Anyway, so the game was being kind of stupid. So there was some screeching, some kind of howling, some moaning that was coming from the moon that was in the recording. And it's like, what was that? Was something, some sort of alien or something on the moon? Is there something underneath the moon we don't know about? So yeah, I think that it's possible, and that's all I know about it. During the moon landing, there was some strange occurrence that occurred while they were on the moon. And they heard something there. So, and Adam, if you know anything, you could explain more about the moon theory. I would like to know about it. Now it looks like the ship's repaired already, but all right, we're going through. The dark side of the moon. Yeah. They said that the moon rung like a bell when one of the Apollo missions, they ejected part of the spacecraft and it crashed into the moon. Yeah, thank you, Duke. And like what I'm talking about, they heard like woo, that was something like that. and basically, like it was some kind of a thing. Right. That's a good point, Matt. Which would be super odd considering you're in an atmospheric vacuum and shouldn't be any sound at all. And because they caught the sound, I hear what y'all are saying, and they caught the sound, from something that was coming from the moon. And if they did hear it and they can't hear it directly from space, I have to look up the specifics about it. But it was like it was something that was on the moon that they're getting a frequency about. They didn't really know where it was coming from. Now we're talking. I got a whole group of people in here now. All right, and Adam said, "In space, no one could hear you scream if your money back after watching third and fourth films." Hilarious. All right, so, and it may have been a frequency. It may have not have been a person screaming necessarily. It sounded like it. So as I said, I have to look up specifically what it was because it's right. In space, you can't hear people scream. Thanks for the link, Duke. All right, we're getting that ship. Ended the whole career. Let's see. I'm trying to see where this island is. Over there's some things we could sink. Okay, so the theory is that there's an alien space station or an ancient construction. Oh, I thank you for letting us know about that. I got 5 people on the boat now. I got 5 people on the ship right now. It's funny, Matt. It's funny. Bart Sibrel is a filmmaker, writer, investigation. I've not seen those alien movies that y'all speaking of. I didn't see those yet. Or if I did, it was ages ago. Yeah, my opinion about the aliens. Now, I had different opinions about the aliens as time went on, and my position is like from a religious perspective about it. Which some people have different opinions, and that's fine. And so basically, like my friend and I thought, like, say the Greys, they came from this planet called Zeta, the Greys, and they're bad. They're nefarious. It's just from a religious perspective. They're somehow connected with the fallen angels, so they connected with the forces of darkness somehow. And I didn't really know how exactly they would have been, but I knew they're bad because they seem to cause people problems and they abduct people and kind of use this as lab rats. But basically, it seems, in my opinion, now talking to some other YouTubers and speculating about it, that they are most likely the Watchers the from the Bible. So there's these things called the Watchers, and they were supposed to watch over us. It's like a type of angel, and then they fell in love with Earth women, and they went and did their thing and destroyed everything. So, and corrupted the bloodline of man. So basically, what happened was they used to appear to people as false gods, and now they appear to people as aliens, and it's like they're both like interconnected. And you could see different, like they want to take people away from believing in God and Jesus and stuff like that. So they are going to come up with this thing for people to worship the alien thing. So they'll say there'll be this alien invasion and happens, and people will look up to them instead of God. So that's like a theory about it. From a religious perspective, now, well, some people may think they may come from another planet. That's fine. I used to think that quite often. But either way, there's certainly something nefarious because they seem to use us as lab rats. Yeah, who watches the Watchers? That's a good question. I think that whoever's watching the Watchers is not doing their job. Basically, was slacking on the job because the Watcher of the Watchers didn't get them to do what they're supposed to do. And something interesting to think about is that there's a story of the Great Flood down in South America. And in South America, they talk about how they had this race of giants that were there. And the giants, they're trying to race, they were angry at this god that they had that flooded the entire earth. That's very similar to the Great Flood from the Bible. And they're building all these pyramids on top of each other to reach him. But they can't reach him because he's from, some other realm. And there's these giants, and there's evidence that there's these giants on the earth, through archaeology and things like that. And there's definitely sightings of some sort of these different beings and things and UFOs and stuff. So, whatever they are, there's certainly something there, in my opinion. And all the pyramids, they're all adjacent to each other. The ones specifically I'm talking about are from, like, Mexico, North Africa, and China. They're all, like, adjacent to each other. So it's very interesting, and they also coincide with Orion's Belt. Those are some of my thoughts about the aliens, but as I said, it could be, this or that. I'm open to different interpretations of it. And also, being the ships are attacking me, and I'm looking out about that. Yes, that's true. I was telling Matt, there's evidence about a great flood that happened during the time of in India. They talk about a great flood. And you have a Chad Daybell ship out there that's going to think they're going to get the best of me. Oh yes, I've heard about that. I heard about that. And so basically the theory is that of a fake alien invasion, that they would somehow have these projections that would project ships in the sky and stuff like that, and people would believe it. And I just hope a fly or something doesn't walk across the projection while it does that. But So basically, that they would do that, and it would be an excuse to have a one world government or whatever. So that's what he's talking about, and that there wouldn't really be an alien invasion. It's a mirage. However, they do it with the technology they have, it was made to look like that. So basically, with this invasion, in my opinion, maybe they will fake an alien invasion and do that. That's very well maybe the case. And another perspective I have is I do believe, in my opinion, that the aliens are real and they're evil. They're somehow associated with the forces of darkness, and there's a passage from scripture that talks about the fallen sons of God would have dominion over the earth and the rulers of the people of the earth. So they certainly would influence the people, the rulers, to do something bad like that, because they would work through them. Like, say you had the Pharaoh, and their god, the false god, would work through that person that they saw themselves as a god, because the fallen angel was working through them. As I said, from a religious perspective. And we're going to see how this goes. And I may not be completely in chat because of the situation, but basically, we're going to see how this goes, and I might, throw in the towel at some point about that. Okay. We're going to speed up. And because I've heard about that, Duke. I've heard about that theory. And maybe the aliens will have an invasion to bring in that New World Order thing, or whatever they want to do, because they're in cahoots with the evil governments and stuff like that. Or they could fake it. Either way, it's something that they would do. And they sunk me. Oh, we all sunk. Okay. I defeated them, and they defeated me. They're popular in the Middle East. Alright, thank you for sharing that with us, Matt. Adam says the theory of flood during the Younger Dryas runs every religion, folklore, and so Egyptian pyramids, from what I can see, could function like a battery or generator. Thank you for sharing that with us, Matt. Yeah, so I sunk, but we sunk the other ship. So I did win, but I also lost my ship. So we're going to have to go and spend more money and resurrect my ship. And this happens to me. This happens. It's usually when I go after that, so I could have just went to shore after I got that, but I just want to try another chance. Oh, Matt, Duke, that's really interesting information. Thank you for sharing. And I'm about to end the game and go to the other things that I do with this. Alright. I'll look up I like what I do is I look up things at Google. Yeah, and that's an interesting perspective about it being Russia, possibly. And in my opinion, I think it is the aliens. Unpopular opinion, but I think it was aliens that did that. But basically, the Russian theory sounds interesting, also. Who were able to recover some interesting technology from the Roswell crash. And I don't know why that they would want to. If it's the Russians, they would blame it on aliens. I don't even know where the idea from that came from. But do you all know about the Roswell incident, the type of Roswell incident that happened in Italy? There was a flying saucer in Italy during the time of the World War II, or right before it. There was a flying saucer that was shot down. Not shot down, but it crashed. So that's interesting. You know, maybe they had some different type of technology by some country, or maybe it was aliens, in my opinion, about it. But of course, I'm open to different ideas too. It's okay. Man, I have to look it up. I'm about to end the game in a few moments, and I'll look it up for y'all and show you all what I'm talking about. Because I don't remember it all from the top of my head. I did a video about it like last year. Yeah, I know. I know. A lot of them do crash. That is a interesting question about what the reasons are for the crashing. Impastable. You know, are they doing it on purpose to, make a site? Like if they were some sort of supernatural being that is making it look like something crashed to, people to have some sort of fear about it, some kind of, or believe in them or something. Are they being shot down by something? When they get into our atmosphere, does something happen and some malfunction happens if they are real, which I believe they are, and is something going on with? Are they fighting each other? It's an interesting thing to think about if they really is saying it is true. What the reason is. Yes. Impossible. Yeah, as I said, in my opinion, I do think it has something to do with, the fallen angels appearing as the Watchers are appearing as if they are aliens from another planet, but they really aren't from another planet. Now, I'll give you all another perspective about this. There's people that practice occults and like witchcraft and stuff that are against Christianity, and they are the Abrahamic religions or the other ones, and they practice occultism, and they're known to summon UFOs. Like they'll do some things and they'll summon a UFO in the sky. There's been some news about that, There was a guy on the news that believed himself as a prophet, and he summoned a UFO in the sky, and it was on the news. And also, there are some occults that were able to communicate with aliens, and they were able to make UFOs appear in the sky. So there you go. And the aliens were saying that Jesus was not the Son of God, but he was a nice man. See, they're trying to say that Jesus wasn't God himself. So this is from the other side, the occultic people. And I think that's interesting. I wonder what the explanation for that would be. And, just passing different theories from my perspective about it and sharing y'all's thoughts about it. It's a good back and forth. I like this stream. I'm glad that you all are here, chatting with each other and me. I really appreciate it as we talk about this interesting situation. And I've never heard of the theory it was a Russian invasion or something. That's interesting. I've not heard of that. But I did read something similar about that maybe, but not quite what y'all were saying. And I'm like about to show you all the video I made about. I think I could show it. I don't know if the thing works, but reacting to. I made a video reacting to UFO videos, and I might play that. I'll think about it. See if the sound, because there's something with the sound app. But, so anyway. Thank you, Adam. But as in my opinion, it was an alien thing, but it's also interesting to see what other people think too. Okay, thank you, Matt. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to, this thing come on. The ship is stuck. Yeah, but I was going to end it anyway. Okay, so we're going to go to this screen. Alright, so we've been talking about some interesting things, and we're getting into this alien topic now, and I'm going to go to Google. We'll talk about some of these things we're talking about now. Okay. I'll have to get back to y'all in a moment. Shout out to the Spaceship Cats. Alright, so let's see what the UFO in Italy. Okay, so Matt and chat, this is the video, not the video, this is the article about the UFO in Italy in 1933. I'll tell you all about. All right, so all right, so without further ado, here we go. A researcher says the first UFO really crashed in Italy in 1933, and he has evidence. All right. So, is Italy not Roswell, New Mexico, the actual site of the first UFO crash on Earth? An Italian researcher claims to have proof that backs up. Xing out that window. An Italian researcher claims to have proof that backs up recent allegations that a crashed UFO was recovered in Italy in 1933. It adds to a growing interest in unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs, that now includes elected officials and a NASA panel, even in the face of broad scientific skepticism. In an interview published by Daily Mail, Italian UFOologist Roberto Pinotti says that fascist dictator Benito Mussolini got his hands on a flying saucer after it crashed on June 13, 1933, but the alien craft, Pinotti said, was captured by American forces at the end of World War II and sent to the U.S. And, alright, come on, page. Pinotti showed documents to the newspaper that he claimed are evidence of both the crash and a secret department set up by Mussolini to study the alleged saucer. I and my colleague Alfredo Licioni began investigating the story of the 1933 UFO crash in Lombardy in 1996 when we received some original secret documents about the case, Pinotti told newspapers. Adam, I agree with you about the UFOs. That makes sense about what you're saying. Warp speed is better. Here's one that had happened 2 weeks ago. Drone or UFO. And let's see. Yeah. So, interesting chat. I like it. All right. Continuing. I and my colleague Alfredo Lissoni began investigating the story in 1933 UFO crash in Lombardy in 1996 when we received some original secret documents about the case, Pinotti told the newspaper. Former U.S. intel official alleges cover-up. Pinotti's claims might have gone unnoticed in the sea of UAP chatter, except for the fact that they appeared to dovetail with the spectacular accusations of former U.S. intelligence officer David Grush, who recently claimed that the Italian flying saucer was the first such object recovered by the United States. The ex-National Reconnaissance Officer suffers reconnaissance officer staffer also said that he has evidence of a secret U.S. program that has obtained multiple non-human flying saucers. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse, Grush said. People started to confide in me, approach me. I have plenty of senior former intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me that they were part of a program. It would be too greasy, Matt. Too much oil. The House Oversight Committee is planning a hearing to discuss Grush's allegations. Florida Senator Marco Rubio has said that other intelligence community members besides Grush have come forward with first-hand accounts of UFO hardware. The renewed UAP interest doesn't stop at the alleged Italian flying saucer. An independent NASA panel has been studying the mysterious phenomena and said last May, that a lack of high-quality data and a lingering stigma are hampering research. And a Pentagon report found images containing objects that could not be identified, but did not conclude that the images had anything to do with aliens. Even with limited research results, some politicians appear eager to find out just what these UAPs are. Senator Christine Gillibrand, Democrat, New York, announced a funding boost for all domain anomaly resolution office tasked with researching and analyzing UAPs in the Senate Armed Services Committee's version of the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, with aggression from adversaries on the rise, and with incidents like the Chinese spy balloon. It's critical to our national security that we have strong air domain awareness over our homeland and around U.S. forces operating overseas, the senator has said in a statement. Not so fast. Despite Grush's claims in separate interrogation videos, the Department of Defense has denied that it has any knowledge of recovered alien spacecraft, and noted UFO debunker Mick West pointed out that Grush's allegations don't add up. Dave Grush claims that U.S. had quite a few alien craft that crashed or landed. West tweeted, "Why then is the evidence of their alienness only isotopic ratios and strange heavy atomic metal arrangements?" Looking into unidentified phenomena is generally a very good idea, but it's important to remember that all something has to do to be labeled an unidentified flying object is to fly, be unidentified. And unidentifiable doesn't mean extraterrestrial, it just means unknown. We're probably not going to be asked to be taken out of our leader anytime soon. And Matt, to answer your question, it crashed in northern Italy. So my opinion about the aliens is that they're interdimensional beings. So they come from some other dimension into our dimension, and I'm going to explain to you all about this theory. Duke says, we went hunting near Stephenville, Texas years back after UFOs were seen the night before. That's West Fort Worth, Texas. Thank you. All right, here we go. The reason why they would crash, Adam, is because they're faking a crash. If that makes any sense. So, just off the top of my head, is that they're faking these crashes to bring people to believe that there's aliens out there that want to visit Earth, and they want to bring people away from Christianity and believe in them instead. And other evidence about this is that there's these people that were able to communicate. This is going to sound really crazy. Through telepathy with these aliens, and they're saying Jesus was just a man, and he wasn't but he was a good and righteous man, but he wasn't the Son of God. And also, basically, what happened was these aliens were trying to get, these interdimensional beings were trying to take people away from Christianity through the spiritualists. The spiritualists were saying this, the occultists, that's what they were saying, and they're able to summon the UFOs. So the interdimensional theory is that they're the fallen angels, the Watchers, and they're disguised as aliens to do the same thing they did before, but since Jesus came, they can't be Odin or Thor or these other things that they used to appear as, but now they appear as these aliens. It's my opinion about it. And the interdimensional hypothesis is a proposal that the unidentified flying object, UFO sightings, are the result of experiencing other dimensions that coexist separately alongside our own. In contrast with either the extraterrestrial hypothesis that suggests UFO sightings are caused by visitations from outside the Earth, or the psychosocial hypothesis that argues that UFO sightings are best explained as psychological or social phenomenon. The hypothesis has been advanced by UFOologists such as I don't know how to pronounce this name. I'm going to say the last name. Miss Liane, John Keel, J. Allen Hynek, and Jacques Vallée. Proponents of the interdimensional hypothesis argue that the UFOs are a modern manifestation of a phenomenon that has occurred throughout recorded human history, which in prior ages were ascribed to mythological or supernatural creatures. So say creatures like, humor me for a second, like fairies, like mermaids, or elves, or those kind of things, or vampires, whatever, that those things were these mythological creatures of the past are now appear as these aliens now. And this is the theory. So in Jeffrey J. Kripal, chair in physiology and religious thought at Rice University, writes, this interdimensional reading, long a staple of spiritualism through the famous fourth dimension, would have very long life within UFOlogy and is still very much with us today. No, Matt, you can't feed him after midnight. I know you want to, but no. Not after midnight. And I'll be keeping an eye on you, Matt. Because you might become the Watcher's Watcher. You might become the Watcher of the Watchers. So you have a great responsibility over there. All right. So Adam says, so if they were jumping through dimensional portal for the first times and didn't know what was going on the other side, they would crash until they had basic map of what was on the other side. That is a good explanation, Matt. So saying that if some of these beings were not directly the fallen angels or the Watchers, but they had something to do with them, And not Matt, but Adam is giving more of a, you could say, a logical explanation about it. Is that which I was thinking of a moment ago, is that when they go through the other dimension into our dimension, something happens, they don't know the terrain well, and they crash into our planet. Or they go to another dimension to our dimension, something happens, and they just crash into the planet. Maybe they're trying to go into their dimension to our dimension, and they just don't know the ropes yet, and that happens. So, Adam, that's an excellent explanation. That's another explanation that's good too. And in which case, it would make sense that they would portal in space where there is nothing to hit and fly down. Yes. And as I said, the theories I've been discussing and thinking about, they're the fallen angels, they're the watchers, or something that has to do with them. Some other thing. Could they be a creation of them? Some other kind of being? Whatever it is. Maybe it's all correct. Like, remember with the test they used to have in school, Matt would have really enjoyed the test in the history class in Mr. David's class, because he used to do these things where you would, like, what type of tree was in the story. And, like, no one would think about what type of tree was in the story. And in a lot of these things, the answer was all the above. So in this situation, maybe all the answers are correct, because all these are theories and hypotheses about what these interdimensional beings are. But that's a good explanation about it. Maybe they're crashing on purpose, and Matt needs to watch those watchers more closely because they keep crashing. And I'm going to probably play a video that I did reacting to these UFOs that I reacted to videos all over the internet of UFOs, and I'm going to show it to you all. All right. And now I'm going to explain about spiritualism. Or they were all women pilots. So now I'm going to explain the spiritualist perspective about it. All right. In the 19th century, various spiritualists believed in other dimensions. During the summer of 1947, spiritualists adapted the other dimensions folklore to explain the recent tales of flying discs. Background. In the late 19th century, the metaphysical term planes was popularized by H.P. Blavatsky, who propounded a complex cosmology consisting of 7 planes. The term ether was adopted by ancient Greek via Victorian physics. No, not physics, my bad. Victorian psychics that would later be discredited. The term ether was incorporated into the writings of 19th century occultists. The etheric plane and the etheric body were introduced in the Theos Appy by Charles Webster, Leadbetter, and Anne Besant to represent a hypothetical fourth plane above the planes of solids, liquids, and gases. The term etheric was later used by popular occult authors such as Alice Bailey, Rudolf Steiner, and numerous others. Diversity, higher alien pilots, not only little green men. And Adam says, well, when you think about it, how many times have we tried to go to space before we succeeded? Exactly. And that goes really with everything. There's a lot of failures. A lot of failures go along with success. Like you'll fail a lot before you succeed. And this logic applies to what Adam's talking about, how, we had a lot of failures and things when we were trying to go to space, and there still were failures after we went to space. There is that incident that a spaceship was in Florida and it was going to space and it exploded in midair, and there was a teacher on board, and it caused a lot of heartache and pain because of that. So there's even, there's always failures, and, especially when we were first starting. So these interdimensional beings that are trying to come over to our side, maybe there's a lot of failed attempts that are going on. That's why I believe that the Roswell incident, it could have been Russia, it could have been something like that. But in my opinion, I think that it may have very well may have been a failed attempt for the UFOs to come over to our side. And continuing. On July 4, 1947, occultist Miada Linnae claimed that flying discs, etheric, Linnae claimed to be telepathic communication with people. So she claimed that they were in telepathic communication with people in the saucers, arguing it is possible for objects to pass from an etheric to a dense level of matter and will then appear to materialize. They then will return to an etheric conditions. Linnae claimed that these visitors are not excarnate humans, but are human beings living in their own world. They come with good intent, which I don't agree with that, but that's what she thinks. They have some idea of experimenting with Earth life, like abducting people and traumatizing people and doing weird experiments on people and farm animals. The prior year, it had been reported that Linnae consulted a medium who relayed communications from a spaceship named Caritia that came to Earth from an unidentified planet. The Challenger, yes. And you remember when it happened. Adam says, jumping through portals ain't like dusting crops, boy. You come out too close to supernova or a meteor shower, and your trip's going to end fast. And Duke, I was watching that in school when it happened. The teacher broke into a heavy sobs. Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy when that happened. Now, of course, I was not even born yet, but I saw a rerun of it on TV at my school. I saw it at a rerun in the morning when they played the TV, and when the TV was like an 80s TV, so, it was so I got to see the rerun of it. Yeah, 1986. Duke says, I was at work. I used to run a giant printing press. Break room had a TV. Okay. Yeah, 1986. It was 12 years before I was born. I was born in 98. But I saw the rerun on an 80s TV, so I got to see the rerun of it. And Krista McAuliffe was going to be the first teacher in space. Duke said, I was your age when it happened, maybe 25. Okay, thank you, Duke. Yeah. And technically I'm 26 now. I just became 26, but still, yeah, same around my age. And, yeah, and Adam was 11. Oh, okay. I'm your daughter's age. All right. And yeah, well, thank you for sharing that with me, guys. And also, Matt, where were you when the Challenger exploded? I was curious. And so remember they're playing, I don't know, it was some channel thing that used to broadcast in the mornings in like 7th grade. We would watch different things, like the news and stuff. It was around 2011. and they show this rocket going up into space and it explodes, and they're talking about the Challenger, the first teacher in space. I remember that they played it in the morning, and yeah, so that was a very unfortunate. Condolences for the losses. Very unfortunate loss of life. But yeah, we even still have failures after we went to the moon. So these interdimensional beings would have failures too. And not all the Watchers are bad, but they're not supposed to interact with humans. So there's good and bad ones. About the Watcher theory. And now I'm going to continue with this article, and you all could still chat with me as I do this. According to one scholar, Linné coined the term interdimensional hypostasis to describe the sightings. Matt, so he was alive but very young. Okay, thank you. Linné is regarded as the earliest proponent of the interdimensional hypothesis. So this interdimensional theory originated with occultists. Like I'm making an exaggeration with the Illuminati, with the people wearing hoods in their heads that chant things, or there's like some kind of a symbol, and they do this and these different things. They undulate back and forth. People like that came up with this. I'm sure Chad Daybell, he was talking to these interdimensional beings, the bad ones. Yeah, he was talking to them, but he's not welcomed anymore. Matt was probably selling crack. I'm sure you were, because, and then, because you want to feed the Watchers and the interdimensional beings after midnight, and you're also selling crack. You're ruthless, Matt. And it was in the 80s, JK. That was funny, Matt. I like that. Okay, Duke says, they say that those on board the Challenger lived till it hit the ocean like a couple of minutes. That's crazy. Can you imagine the terror that they must have been facing? What they were facing had to be terrible, but maybe the adrenaline was rushing. Did they really know what was going on completely? Did they know they're about to completely crash and die or be deleted? Were they trying to fix something? It's a speculation about it. I'm sure they knew. I'm sure it was terrible. That is crazy. Thank you for sharing that with us, Duke. I was thinking, yeah. See, you had Matt is the handyman. He had to fund the contrast. Yeah, he had to fund them. He had to fund that. And so if the spaceship needs funds, we're gonna go over to Matt because he has experience. And I could have an explanation here. I have a new hypothesis why these interdimensional beings are crashing. It's because Matt has been giving them crack. And they took some mushrooms too, and they had a trip, and then they went to the Earth. So I think he might be a factor why they're crashing. So, Matt's the mastermind behind all these things. So there we go. And Duke says they were probably trying to figure out how to save themselves. That's what I'm thinking. The adrenaline's rushing. They're trying to figure out how to save themselves. In the midst, they go boom. And I'm about to look more about the Challenger after I read this page. John Keel and the ultra-terrestrials. Although the extraterrestrial hypothesis has remained predominant, by the 1970s, he says my crack is out of this world makes sense. Yep, absolutely. I don't doubt it. By the 1970s, the interdimensional hypothesis began to be embraced by some UFO enthusiasts. Paranormal author and UFO enthusiast John Keel recalled, I abounded the extraterrestrial hypothesis in 1967 when my own field investigations disclosed an astonishing overlap between psychic phenomena and UFOs. The objects and apparitions do not necessarily originate on another planet. It may not even exist as a permanent, not permanent, a per, yeah, I was right, permanent constructions of matter. It is more likely they were, that we see, well, what we want to see and interpret such visions according to our contemporary beliefs. HODL crack. And his book in 1970, UFOs Operation Trojan Horse, Keel argued that a non-human or spiritual intelligence source has staged a whole events over a long period of time in order to propagate and reinforce certain erroneous beliefs systems. For example, monsters, ghosts, demons, and fairy faith in the Middle Europe, vampire legends, mystery airships in 1897. So even in 1897, there are mystery airships. Going back in medieval Germany, there are UFO sightings. Way back then, before Roswell, before the Soviet Union, before any of our technology, there were UFOs that were being seen by ancient peoples in the 1800s and people in the medieval times, and also the people that in folklore with the gods they had. They're like in India, the Hindu gods. They had all these gods that were coming down from the heavens, and they're talking like Thor was flying around with the goats in his goat chariot. It sounds like a UFO. And in the Bible, it talks about. Joe Rogan was talking on his podcast about it, how there's these in Elijah, in the scripture, they're talking about these chariots of fire picked him up and brought him away. And the chariots of fire sounds like a UFO. So, in my opinion, it has to do with the fallen angels, or something else that has to do with them, or some other kind of being associated with them, like Adam and I were talking about. So, that is another perspective about the UFOs. Mystery airships. We could look that one up too. I'll go to that article also, because that's a whole thing right here. You know what? We're going to take a detour into the mystery airships. Duke said, I need a new butt. Mine got a crack at it. Well, yeah, it's happened to me before. It sucks. Matt went to Hunter's Guy, apparently. All right, so I have not heard about the mystery airships either. All right, we're going to get into this one. We know about the interdimensional theory. I've been going on about it, and the camera needs to be on me, and it needs to be kind of on the thing in the background, so we're going to put it like that. Yeah, so basically, we're going to fix that so people could see what I'm talking about here. And then I'm going to go right here, and here it goes. Alright, I've not heard of this before. We're going to look at this diagram. Alright, this is the mystery ships. November 22, 1896. And here we have this situation. We have E.T., it looks like Del Orion. Hilarious. The mystery airship or phantom airship was a phenomenon that thousands of people across the United States claimed to have observed from late 1896 to mid-1897. Typical airships reports involved nighttime sightings of unidentified lights, but more detailed accounts reported flying objects comparable to an airship or a dirigible. I don't even know what that is. I probably said it wrong, but what on earth is that? Oh, a zeppelin. Well, that's a real complicated way to say a zeppelin. A zeppelin. I just said zeppelin. It is like a nephilim. That's a funny word, a zeppelin. I'm inventing words tonight. I invented a hot bucket topic, and now I invented the word zeppelin. All right, so a zeppelin. All right, mystery airships reports are seen as cultural predecessors to modern claims of extraterrestrial piloted flying saucers style of UFOs. Reports of alleged crewmen and pilots usually describe them as human-looking, although sometimes the crew claimed to be from Mars. It was popularly believed that the mystery airships were the product of some inventor or genius who was not ready to make knowledge of his creation public. It has been frequently argued that mystery airships are unlikely to represent test flights of real human-manufactured Zeppelins, as no record of successful, sustained, or long-range airship flights are known from the period, and it would have been impossible, not to mention irrational, to keep such a thing secret. To the contrary, however, there were in fact several functional airships manufactured before 1896-97 reports. Solomon Andrews made a successful flight test of his Arion in 1863, but their capabilities were far more limited than a mystery airship, Rassay. Others note that contemporary American newspapers of the yellow journalism era were more likely to print manufactured stories and hoaxes than our modern news sources and editors of the late 19th century often would have expected the reader to understand that such stories were false. Duke said, I've heard of mystery meat, but never mystery airships. I've heard of that too, mystery meat too. I've heard that too. Duke says, they're illegible, old school name of a blimp that flies, not a big fat girl. Them girls need blimp pimp. Most journalists of the period did not seem to take the airship reports very seriously, as after the major 1896-97 wave concluded, the subject quickly fell from the public conscientious. The airship stories received further attention only after the 1896-97 newspaper reports were largely rediscovered in the mid-1960s. UFO investigators suggested that the airships might represent earlier precursors of post-World War II UFO sightings. Well, that's an interesting airship. Very nice. A number of popular novels detailing with airships and their secretive inventors were published in the years before the airship sightings. Especially popular among American audiences were Frank Raday, stories of Louis Sen-Arinis, which began in 1882 and frequently centered on airships. The wildly successful Frank Raday library ran to 191. Stories Sen-Arinis' acquaintance Julius Verne borrowed the conceit of secretive inventor who had developed a powerful airship for his 1886 novel Roubaix the Conqueror, who was published in the U.S. in 1887. The airship stories of the prolific science fiction author Robert Duncan Mullane were also serialized in San Francisco newspapers in 1890s. Their movie in the Old West. Don't recall the name, but aliens craft attack them. It's fairly amusing. I remember Cowboys and Aliens, Matt. I watched that. The late 19th century was a period of intense oh. In the late 19th century was a period of technological innovation, including the invention of the telephone and the automobile. Widespread publications about heavier-than-air flights in the late 19th century gave rise to a common belief that such an invention was immediate. On November 17, 1896, the day before it carried the first report of an airship sighting, Sacramento Bee printed what claimed to be a telegram from New York, inventor stating that he was flying from New York to California and would be there within 2 days. In July 1868, the tophologist carried a report from a local newspaper in Copiapo, Chile, regarding a gigantic bird with brilliant scales that made a metallic sound had been seen flying over the town. In his 1931 book, Low Charles Fort discussed this report along with various other reports of aerial apparitions from 19th to 20th centuries. Fort observed that inhabitants of the backwoods of China might similarly describe this as Earth's airships floating over their farmlands. The airship wave of 1896-97. The best known of the mystery airship waves began in California in 1896. Afterwards, reports and accounts of similar airships came from other areas, generally moving eastward across the country. Some accounts during this wave of airship reports claim that occupants were visible on some airships, and encounters of pilots were reported as well. These occupants often appeared to be human, though their behavior, mannerisms, and clothing were sometimes reported to be unusual. Sometimes the apparent humans claimed to be from the planet Mars. Historian Mike Dash described and summarized the 1896-1897 series of airships sightings, writing, "The general conclusion of the investigators was a considerable number of simpler sightings were misidentified as planets and stars, and large number of more complex, the results of hoaxes and practical jokes, sometimes residuum perplexing." All right, Matt, thank you for coming. to the stream. I appreciate you. Duke says, now that would have been freaky. An airship sighting in 1886, not like someone back then would make up that kind of story. Exactly, Duke, exactly. I don't even know how you would pull a prank about. How would you even do a prank like that back in that time? Yeah, definitely. They weren't making it up. The general conclusion of investigation that considered a number of simpler sightings were misidentification of planets, stars, and large, more complex results of hoaxes and practical jokes. A smaller residuum remains perplexing. The 1897 wave of sightings came in two separate phases, one largely in California in late 1896 and one in the central eastern U.S. in the spring of 1897. The total number of report sightings was thousands based on newspaper reports. The total number of witnesses may have exceeded 100,000. This is a mystery airship. (1896) wave. The first wave of airship sightings took place primarily in California and along the west coast of the United States. From November 17 through December 1896, with a few isolated sightings in California during January. There were also sightings reported in Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. Many newspaper accounts describe the sightings as part of a transcontinental flight by the inventor. On November 18, 1896, the Sacramento Bee and San Francisco Cal published accounts of the first sighting, which had taken place night before. Witnesses reported a bright light moving slowly over Sacramento. Duke said maybe they serve mysterious meat on the mysterious airship. Adam, thank you for coming. Good night to you. On November 18, 1896, Sacramento Bee and the San Francisco Cal published accounts of the first sightings, which had taken place the night before. Witnesses reported a bright light moving slowly over Sacramento on the evening of November 17, an estimated 11 of 1,000 feet. Some witnesses said they could discern a dark shape behind the lights. A witness named R.O. Lowry stated that he heard a voice from the craft issuing commands to increase elevation in order to avoid hitting a church steeple. Lowry added in what was no doubt meant to a wink to the reader. He believed the apparent captain to be referring to a tower of a local brewery. There no churches nearby. Round steak bologna. Thanks. So, and I saw a UFO that way. That way. It was after the show, Duke. It was 10 o'clock, like 2 years ago or so. And I saw this blue, bright thing coming up from the horizon. and it was kind of going like this, and it went up into the sky, and it was hovering, and it was looking at me. And I took a video of it, and I put it on my channel a couple years ago. And it was a big, bright blue thing. I don't know what it was. It was definitely a UFO. And it gives off a weird vibe to it. And the whole thing was like a giant, bright, blue sphere. That's what it looked like. Just the whole thing was a light. The November 18, 1896 edition of the Stockton, California Daily Mail featured one of the earliest accounts of an alleged alien craft sighting. Colonial H.G. Shaw claimed that while driving his buggy through the countryside of Lodi near Stockton, he came across what appeared to be a landed spacecraft. Shaw described it as having a metallic surface which was also completely featureless apart from the rudder and pointed ends. He estimated a diameter of 25 feet and said the vessel... Yeah, it would be cool. Yeah, it would be. Yes. Was around 150 feet in total length. 3 slender, 7-foot tall, apparent extraterrestrials were said to approach from the craft while emitting a strange, warbling noise. The beings examined Shaw's buggy and then tried to physically force him to accompany them back of the airship. The aliens were said to give up after realizing they lacked the physical strength to force Shaw aboard. They boarded their ship, which lifted off the ground and sped out of sight. Shaw believed that these beings were Martians sent to kidnap an Earthling for unknowable, but potentially nefarious purposes. This had been seen by some as an early attempt of an alien abduction. It's possible that the first published account explicitly extraterrestrial beings attempting to abduct humans and force them into their spacecraft. The mystery light reappeared over Sacramento on the evening of November 21, 1896. It was seen over Folsom, San Francisco, Oakland, Petaluma, Santa Rosa, Sebastopol, Modesto, Manteca, and several other cities later that same evening, and was reportedly viewed by hundreds of witnesses, including San Francisco Mayor Adolph Sutro. Duke says, "I can see the sky very well at night at my farm. It's very dark out here. We sit out in the pond all night and watch the sky to see tons of weird stuff out there." I'm sure you do. And I'd like to know one thing strange that you saw out there. It'd be interesting to know about it. There's lights here, but it's kind of like, it's not as populated where I am. It's a suburb, but it's not as populated, and it's dark out here too. It depends. Sometimes neighbors have their lights on or off. It'll vary, but yeah, it could be dark here too. Sometimes it was like really, really dark here when a lot of the lights were out. Yeah, I could see all kinds of things. Yeah. So California cities reporting sightings after the November 23 included Red Bluff, Redding, Woodland, Yolo, Chico, San Jose, Acampo, Lodi, Crows Landing, Trial, Tulare, Fresno, Bakersfield, Los Angeles, and Anderson. With public interest in the airship sightings running high, a young San Francisco attorney named George D. Collins came forward and told the press that he represented the mysterious airship's inventor. Collins stated the lights reported over Sacramento must have been his client conducting a nocturnal test flights before an official unveiling of his secret invention. This explanation seemed reasonable to many and was given extensive coverage in the San Francisco newspapers. After Collins' accountment, rumors and wild tales began to spread, and for several weeks, the Phantom airship was the biggest news story in Northern California, as sightings and reports of mystery lights continued to increase throughout California. Attorney Collins found himself in the center of much attention and came to regret his earlier bragging. San Francisco Chronicle nicknamed Airship Collins, and he was so hounded by reports and taunted by curious busybodies, he recanted some of his claims and actually fled into hiding. Damn. Duke said tons of shooting stars, sometimes like you'd never believe. Once we saw a space shuttle in the daylight, though. Ah, very interesting. I have seen shooting stars here. I've seen them. Really, really interesting looking here, also. And I remember one time I saw a comet, or a shooting star. I think it was probably a comet. I was looking up in the sky, and I saw this giant comet, shooting star. It just went across the sky. It was really big too, and had all kinds of colors in it. Like it was like on fire, and it just went and dashed across the sky. And it was really big, and it was in slow motion. Really cool. Former California Attorney General William Henry Harrison Hart also claimed to represent the interior of the mystery airship. His claims were even more outlandish than those of Attorney Collins, and like Collins, he eventually stopped talking to newspapers about his alleged connection to the airship. And an editorial in the San Francisco Examiner from December 1896, William Randolph Hearst lashed out of the fake journalism that he believed had led to the airship story. Fake journalism has a good ideal to answer for, but we do not recall a more discreditable exploit. And the line, the persistent attempt to make the public believe that the air in the vicinity is polluted with airships. It has been manifested for weeks that the whole airship story is pure myth. Alright, this is another one. Mystery Airship 1897. These, I don't even know if y'all could see that. Nope. There we go. You see it better. These things are so cool. Now, they may be UFOs. Some of these things may be UFOs from the aliens, the Watchers, the interdimensional beings. Something like that. And also, if they were also inventions from people that were just building flying machines in the 1800s, that is so cool. That's so cool. I've had blueprints of creating an airplane. Like, when I was a kid, I would go to the World 2 Museum and I would see the aircrafts there, and I kind of would like the brainstorm, and I would draw blueprints about, like, if you got some metal structure and made it aerodynamic, and you got like the engine of like a lawnmower and somehow made it where it would be able to fly in the sky, which I'm not educated in this field, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But if you put all these things together on there and you had like a thing to pull it up, it could hypothetically maybe fly in the sky with enough energy and force. So I just thought it's interesting because it's basically seeing at the World Tea Museum in New Orleans, it's like these big fans. That's what they are. These big fans. That's what they look like. And then it pulls the ship up in the air. It's so cool. Duke says, you can see satellites too. We used to have a cool telescope, but somebody left it out in the pasture and ran it over with a poo truck. Oh no. Oh no, Duke. That's horrible. Telescopes are cool. The California airship wave of 1896 largely ended in December, but in February 1897, reports of mysterious lights in the skies over western Nebraska marked the beginning of an even larger wave of airship sightings that would cover the greater part of the American Midwest. This second airship wave lasted until May 1897, with a few sightings reported in June. On February 2, 1897, the Omaha Bee reported a sighting over Hastings, Nebraska, the previous day. One witness from Arkansas, allegedly a former state senator, Harris, was supposedly told by an airship pilot during the tensions leading up to the Spanish-American War that the craft was bound for Cuba to use its Hoto Chicas gun to kill and delete the Spaniards. I've seen Duke when I was in Kentucky with my uncle up there. I remember the satellite that would orbit around the Earth. And also, I could see it here too sometimes, depending how many lights are on. One witness from Arkansas, allegedly a former state senator, Harris, was supposedly told by an airship pilot during the tensions. I read that. In one account from Texas, 3 men reported an encounter with an airship with 5 peculiarly dressed men, who asserted that they were descendants of the lost tribes of Israel and had learned English from the 1553 North Pole expedition led by Hugh Willoughby. Oops. There was a series of mystery airship sightings in 1909 in New England, which were triggered by a hoax by Wallace Tillinghast, who falsely claimed to have invented and flown an airship from Worcester, New York City. Airship sightings were also reported from New Zealand. Duke says, I'm going to get some sleep now. Great show. I gotta get up early and get down to Dallas to see his parents. Have a good night and be careful. All right, Duke. Well, get some sleep. Take care. And thank you for coming to the stream. Good night, everybody that's going to bed. I want to continue this until I'm finished and end it in a little while from now. All right. There was a series of mystery airship sightings in 1909 in New England, which were triggered by a hoax Wallace Tillinghast, who falsely claimed to have invented and flown an airship from Worcester to New York City. Airship sightings were also reported from New Zealand, Australia, and various European locations, including United Kingdom, where a hoax by M.B. Boyd similarly triggered the wave of claim sightings. There have been 47 powered flights in 1909 and hundreds of news articles about aeronautics, so the airship claims they appeared plausible to the public. Later reports came from the United Kingdom in 1912 and 1913. Jerome Clark wrote that one curious feature of the post-1897 airship waves was the failure of each to stick to historical memory. Although in 1909, for example, brought a flood of sightings worldwide and attended discussion and speculation, contemporary accusations do not allude to the hugely publicized events of little more than a decade earlier. So these things could have been extraterrestrial origin, and they could have been. It's a I think, in my opinion, it's a combination of things. It's man-made airships. It's also extraterrestrial origin, and maybe some hoaxes, possibly. All right, so that's it with that one. You know, I wonder where the airships are now. You know, it's very mysterious. I've seen that before, and that was in Super Mario. That kind of airship. Yeah, that reminds me of some movies I saw. So that's where that comes from. Yeah, those airships are so cool. Absolutely. That's the airship up in the air. Those are some other ones. Yeah, that's so cool how they, with these different airships in the sky. It's so different than the kind of flying things we have now. That's the sea and a ship flying in the sky. Gustave Doré. Now what I want to do is I'm gonna finish this part and then go into the other things that I was going to talk about. J. Allen. Read this again. So in in his 1970 book UFOs Operation Trojan Horse, Q argued that a non-human or a spiritual intelligence source has stagged whole events over a long period of time in order to propagate and reinforce certain erroneous beliefs systems. For example, monsters, ghosts, demons, and fairy faith in Middle Europe, and vampire legends, mystery airships. 1897, mystery aeroplanes in the 1930s, mystery helicopters, anomalous creature sightings, poltergeist phenomena, balls of light, and UFOs. Keel conjectured that ultimately all these anomalies are a cover for a real phenomenon. Keel used the term ultra-terrestrials to describe UFO occupants he believed to be non-human entities capable of taking on whatever form they want. I'm going to check something real quick. J. Allen Hynek was an American astronomer who served as a scientific advisor to the U.S. Air Force UFO Studies Project Sign, Project Grudge, and Project Blue Book. Hynek pioneered the close encounter classification system. Hynek had cameo in Steven Spielberg's film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Jacques Vallée, a student of Hynek's, served as the inspiration for a French researcher portrayed by Francois Truffaut in the film. In 1975, The Edge of Reality, Vallée and Hynek consider the possibility of what they call interlocking universes. Vallée, what other wild hypothesis could we make? Hynek, there could be other universe with different quantum rules of vibration rates. If you want, our own space-time continuum could be a cross section through a universe with many more dimensions. Think what a hard time would have convincing and abrogene that right now. Although this room, TV pictures are passing, yet they are here. You have to have a transductor to see them, namely a TV set. Well, the same sense there may be interlocking universes right here. We have this idea of space. We always think of another universe being someplace else, and it may not. Maybe it's right here. In his landmark in 1969 book, Passport of Magonia, on UFOs, folklore, and parallel worlds, Vallée argues for a parallel universe coexisting with our own. The idea was reiterated in Vallée's subsequent writings. Vallée summarized his objection in his 1990 paper, Five Arguments Against the Extraterrestrial Origin of Unidentified Flying Objects. Unexplained close encounters are far more numerous than required for any physical survey of the Earth. The humanoid body structure of the alleged aliens is not likely to have originated from another planet. It is not biologically adapted to space travel. The reported behavior in thousands of abducted reports contradicts the hypothesis of a genetic or scientific experimentation on humans by an advanced race. The extension of the phenomenon throughout recorded human history demonstrates the UFOs are not contemporary phenomenon, and apparent ability of UFOs to manipulate space and time suggests radically different and richer alternatives. David Grush. David Grush, a former member of the UAP task force, famous for claiming that U.S. government was covering up evidence for advanced technology, UFOs, and alien pilots, described the idea as possible alternative explanation to extraterrestrial UFO hypothesis, for his claim saying it could be that this is not necessarily extraterrestrial and is actually coming from a higher dimensional physical space. It might be co-located right here. Alright. Space animal hypothesis. The space animal hypothesis proposes that reports of flying saucers or UFOs might be caused not by technological alien spacecraft or mass hysteria, but rather by animal life forms that indigenous Earth's atmosphere are. I'm going to look that one up. Time travel hypothesis. Time traveler hypothesis, also known as Coronat UFO future human extraterrestrial model, Terminator theory is a proposed that unidentified flying objects are humans traveling from the future using advanced technology. Some notable people have in recent public exposure to that. Mac Tunney's was an American author and blogger whose work focused on future transhuman, things. All right. Space animal hypothesis. The space animal hypothesis proposes that reports of flying saucers or UFOs might be caused by technological alien spacecraft or mass hysteria, but rather by animal life forms that are indigenous to Earth's atmosphere or interplanetary space. Proponents. Multiple authors independently suggested the space animal hypothesis. In 1923, paranormal author Charles Fort had mused, it seems no more incredible that up in seemingly unoccupied sky there should be hosts of living things than that the seemingly blank of an ocean should swarm with life. During the 1947 flying disc craze, a fan of Fort's writing named John Philip Bissar became the first modern proponent of the hypothesis when he authored a letter to the Air Force suggesting that discs might be animals bearing a very little likeness to human beings. In 1949, he wrote to the Saturday Evening Post to suggest that the discs might be more like octopuses in mentality than humans. In 1957, a Saucers Group's newsletter credited Bezer with the space animal idea, and in 1978, he was called the granddaddy of the space critter hypothesis. In 1948, the Saturday Evening Post quoted Louis Walter Alvarez opinion that gizmos appeared to be alive. In April 1949, the Air Force Project Sign released an essay which considered the hypothesis, writing the possible existence of some sort of strange extraterrestrial animals has been remotely considered, as many of the objects described acted more like animals than anything else. In January 1951, Fate magazine published the opinion of David W. Chase, who argued that the saucers are the beings themselves. In 1953, Walter Carrig speculated in American Weekly that objects behave more like puppies than spaceships. That year, Desmond Lassae's book, Flying Saucers Have Landed, speculated that a UFO reported over Oloron and Galac, France, might been a huge living thing. In 1954, French engineer René Furet published his theory that the disk beings were able to live in space. In October 1954, Alfred Loading was publicly quoted on his speculation that the disks may be a kind of space animal. In 1955, Austrian occultist Zoe Wasiloko Serecki argued that the saucers were ionospheric animals. Her writings in turn influenced Ivan T. Sanderson, who became the most eminent advocate of the space animal idea. In 1967, Sanderson authored a book on the topic, Uninvited Visitors, a biologist looks at UFOs. Trevor James, considerable similarly, no wait, I got this. Trevor James Constable similarly argued that UFOs were in fact amphibia-like animals inhabiting the sky. According to Constable, the creatures could be the size of a coin or as large as half a mile across. Constable authored They Lived in the Sky, 1958, and the book about his history in later decades. Considerable invoked these beings to explain supposed cattle mutilations. Alright, so we read those two things, the interdimensional theory and the other thing. Okay. And this is Planet X, Planet 10, and that's its orbit around Earth in our solar system. And also we have this here, we have this, the Kuiper belts and how it goes over like that. Very fascinating, very fascinating. And I think basically, it's interesting to finally visualize and see how this worked exactly and what this did. Because we didn't always know exactly how it worked, and now we have a good explanation about how it all went down. And eventually it'll come back in our orbit, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's the new occupant. See, that's Nibiru. It's a red planet, and it's way out there, outside the solar system. And it'll come into our solar system. Here's a theory that it would crash into our planet. Not that that would happen, but something like that. Alright, so this is the planets beyond Neptune. Following the discovery of the planet Neptune in 1846, there was considerably speculation that another planet might exist beyond the orbit. The search began in the mid-19th century and continued to start in the 20th with per Civil Lowell's request for Planet X. Lowell proposed the Planet X hypothesis to explain apparent discrepancies in the orbits of giant planets, particularly Uranus and Neptune, speculating the gravity of a large unseen ninth planet could have I don't even know what that is. Perturbation, the complex motion of mass body subject to force. Uranus enough to account for the regulations. Discovery of Pluto in 1930 appeared to validate Lowell's hypothesis, and Pluto was officially named the ninth planet in 1978. Pluto was conclusively determined to be too small for gravity to affect it, but I still believe it's still a planet. Early speculation. In 1840s, the French mathematician Urbain Le Verrier used the nutation mechanics to analyze perturbations of the orbit of Uranus, hypothesized that they were caused by the gravitational pull of yet an undiscovered planet. Le Verrier predicted a position of this new planet and set his calculations to German astronomer Johann Galilei on September 23, 1846, the night following his receipt of the letter. Galilei and his student Heinrich de Arrest discovered Neptune exactly where Le Verrier had predicted. There remained some slight discrepancies in the giant planet's orbit. These were taken to indicate the existence of yet another planet orbiting Neptune. Even before Neptune's discovery, some speculations that one planet alone was not enough to explain the discrepancy. On 17 November 1834, British amateur astronomer Reverend Thomas John Hussey reported a conversation he had with French astronomer Alexis Bouvard to George Brittle Airy. The British astronomer Loyal Hussey reported that when he suggested to Bouvard that the unusual motion of Uranus might be due to the gravitational influence of undiscovered planets, Bouvard replied the idea had occurred to him that he had corresponded with Peter Andreas Hansen, director of the Seeberg Observatory in Gotha, about the subject. Hansen's opinion was that a single body could not accurately explain the motions of Uranus, and postulated that two planets lay beyond Uranus. And that makes sense, and it's good to see the technical details of this, and all the people that meant well, that said moronic things, that this planet wasn't real, and that this thing didn't make any scientific sense. They're clearly wrong, as you can see. In 1848, Jacques Bennet raised an objection to Le Verrier's calculations, claiming that Neptune's observed mass was smaller and its orbit larger than Le Verrier had initially predicted. He postulated, based on largely simple subtraction from Le Verrier's calculations, that another planet of roughly 12 Earth's mass, which he named Hyperion, must exist beyond Neptune. Le Verrier denounced Bennett's hypothesis, saying there is absolutely nothing in which one could determine the position of another planet, bearing hypothesis in which imagination played too large of a part. In 1850, James Ferguson, assistant astronomer at the United States Observatory, noted that he had lost a star he had observed, JR 171K9K, which Matt Murray, the superintendent of the observatory, claimed was evidence that must be a new planet. Subsequent searches failed to recover the planet in a different position. In 1878, C.H.F. Peters, director of the Hamilton College Observatory in New York, showed the star had not, in fact, vanished, and that the previous results had been due to human error, which I disagree with. In 1879, Camille Flammarion noted that the comets of 1862 and 1889 had aphelia of 47 and 49 AU respectively, suggesting that they might mark the orbital radius of an unknown planet that had dragged them into an elliptical orbit. Astronomer George Forbes concluded, on the basis of the evidence that two planets must exist beyond Neptune, he calculated based on the fact that 4 comets possessed aphelia at around 100 AU and a further 6 with aphelia clustered at around 300 AU. The orbital elements of a pair of hypothetical trans-Neptunian planets. These elements accorded suggestively with those made independently by another astronomer named David Peck Todd, suggesting to many that they might be valid. However, skeptics argued that orbits of the comets involved were still too uncertain to produce meaningful results. Some have considered Forbes' hypothesis to a precursor to Planet 9. It's like the outcast planet, the black sheep planet, the kid in the way in the back of class. In 1900 and 1901, Harvard College Observatory Director William Henry Pickering led 2 searches for trans-Neptunian planets. The first was begun by Danish astronomer Hans Emil Leu, who, after studying the data on the orbit of Uranus from 1690 to 1895, concluded that one trans-Neptunian planet alone could not account for the discrepancies in its orbit. The postulated impositions of 2 planets, he believed, were responsible. The second was launched with Gabriel Dallet suggested that a single trans-Neptunian planet lying at 47 AU could account for the motion of Uranus. Pickering agreed to examine plates for any suspected planets. In neither case were any found. In 1902, after observing the orbits of comets with aphelia beyond Neptune, Theodore Grigul of Munster, Germany, proclaimed the existence of Uranus-sized planet at 50 AU with 360 period, which named Hades, cross-checking the deviation of the orbit Uranus in 1921. Grigule revised his orbital period to 310 to 330 years to better fit the observed deviations. In 1909, Thomas Jefferson Jackson C., an astronomer with reputation as an egocentric contrarian, there is a certain one, most likely two, possibly three planets beyond Neptune, tentatively naming the first one Oceanus. He played their respective distance at 42 to 56 and 72 AU from the Sun. He gave no indication as how to determine their existence, and no known searches were mounted to locate them. So we have this whole history. After observing orbits of comets with aphelia beyond Neptune, Theodore Munster, and then he did it in 1911. Indian astronomer Then Kailash Ketakar suggested the existence of two trans-Neptunian planets, which he named after the Hindu gods Brahma and Vishnu, by reworking the patterns observed by Paré-Simon, Laplace, and the planetary satellites of Jupiter, and applying them to the outer planets, the three inner Galilean moons of Jupiter, Europa, and Ganymede, are locked and complicated at 1 to 2 for resonance called Laplace Renaissance. Ketakar suggested Uranus, Neptune, and its hypothetical trans-Neptunian planets were also locked in Laplace like resonances. This is incorrect. Uranus and Neptune, while in a near 2 to 1 reconnaissance, are not in full reconnaissance. His calculations predicted a mean distance of Brahma of 3895 AU, an orbital period of 242.28 years. When Pluto was discovered in 19 years later, its mean distance of 39.48 AU, orbital period of 248 Earth years were closed to Ketakar's prediction. Pluto had in fact 2 to 3 resonances with Neptune. Here we go. In 1894, when the help with Pickering and Lowell founded the Lowell Observatory, 1906 conceived that he resolved the conundrum of Uranus's orbit. He began an extensive project to search for a trans-Neptunian planet, which he named Planet X, name previously used by Gabriel Dallet. The X in the name represents the unknown and is pronounced in a letter as opposed to Roman numeral 10. I didn't know that. Well, we always thought it was Planet X, but yeah, it was just an unknown variable like you would have in algebra. But still 10 is X. Anyway, at the time, Planet X would have been the 9th planet. Lowell's hope in the tracking down of Planet X was to establish his scientific credibility, which had eluded him to his widely Deirdre belief that a channel-like features visible on the surface of Mars was with canals constructed by intelligent civilization. Belief that channel-like features visible on the surface of Mars were canals constructed by intelligent civilization. Lowell's first search focused on the eclectic, the plane encompassed by Lowell's first search focused on the eclectic, the plane encompassed by the zodiac, where the other planets in the solar system lie. Using a 5-inch photographic camera, he manually examined over 200 3-hour exposures with a magnifying glass and found no planets. At the time, Pluto was too far above the ecliptic to be managed by the survey. After revising his predicted possible locations, Lowell conducted a second search for. Lowell's first search focused on the ecliptic, the plane encompassed the zodiac, where the other planets in the solar system lie. Using a 5-inch photographic camera, he manually examined over 200 3-hour exposures with magnifying glass and found no planets. At that time, Pluto was too far above the ecliptic to be imagined by the survey. After revising his predicted possible locations, Lowell conducted a second search from 1914 to 1916. In 1915, he published his memoir of the trans-Neptunian planet, in which he concluded that Planet X had a mass roughly 7 times that of Earth, about half of Neptune, and a mean distance from the Sun of 43 AU. He assumed Planet X would be a large, low-density object with a high albedo, like the giant planets. As a result, it would show a disk with diameter about 1 acroseconds and apparent magnitude between 12 and 13, bright enough to be spotted. Separately, on 1908, Pickering announced that by analyzing irregularities. Separately, in 1908, Pickering announced that by analyzing irregularities. Separately, in 1908, Pickering announced that by analyzing irregularities in Uranus's orbit. I've not heard of irregularities before. I've not heard that word. That's why it caused me some confusion. He had found evidence of a 9th planet, his hypothetical planet, which he termed Planet O because it came after N. Neptune possessed a mean orbital radius of 51.9 AU and an orbital period of 373.5 years. Plates taken at his observatory in Arequipa, Peru, showed no evidence for the predicted planet. The British astronomer P.H. Cowell showed the irregularities observed in Uranus's orbit virtually disappeared once the planet's displacement of long latitude was taken into account. Lowell himself, despite his close association with Pickering, dismissed Planet O out of hand, saying, "This planet is very properly designated O, for it is nothing at all." Unbeknownst to Pickering, 4 of the photographic plates taken search for Planet O by astronomers at the Mount Wilson Observatory in 1919 captured images of Pluto, though this is only recognized in later years. Pickering went on to suggest many other possible trans-Neptunian planets up to year 1932, which he named PQRST, and none were ever detected. Lowell's sudden death in 1960 temporarily halted the search for Planet X. Failing to find the planet, according to one friend, virtually killed him. Lowell's widow, Constance, engaged in a legal battle with the observatory over Lowell's legacy, which halted the search for Planet X for several years. In 1925, the observatory obtained a glass disc for a new 13 to 33 centimeters wide field telescope to continue the search, constructed with funds from Abbot Lawrence Lowell, Percival's brother. In 1929, the observatory director, Vesto Melvin Sifler, similarly added the job of locating the planet to Clyde, a 22-year-old Kansas farm boy who had only just arrived in Lowell's observatory after Silfer had been impressed by a sample of his astronomical drawings. That's pretty cool. That's him. By beginning of the 1930s, Tambaugh's search had reached the constellation of Gemini on 18 February 1930. After searching for nearly a year and examining nearly 2 million stars, and they discovered Pluto. So basically, what happened was they found it and they named it Pluto planet. There was Planet X and they named it Pluto, but the real Planet X was another planet that's much farther back than Pluto. So they thought Pluto was it, but no, there's something even farther back, and that's what they're saying in that little part. And the continued search for Eclectic for other distant objects, he found hundreds of variable stars, asteroids, as well as comets. The observatory disappointment and surprise, Pluto showed no visible disk. It appeared as point, no different from a star, and only 15 magnitude was 6 times diameter. Lowell had predicted, which meant that it was either very small or very dark. Because of Lowell's predictions, astronomers thought that Pluto would be massive enough to protrude planets. This led to assume that albedo could not be less than 0.7, meaning that at a minimum it would reflect 7% of the light that hit it. which would have made Pluto about as dark as asphalt, and similar to reflect the least reflective planet, which is Mercury. So it lost the Planet X title because it was not Planet X. After 1978, a number of astronomers kept up search for Lowell's Planet X, convinced that because Pluto was no longer a viable candidate, an unseen 10th planet must have been protruding the outer planets. In 1890s and 1990s, Robert Harrington led such a determine the real cause of apparent irregularities. He calculated that any planet X would be at roughly 3 times the distance of Neptune from the Sun. The door would be highly eccentric and strongly inclined to an ecliptic. The planet's orbit would be at roughly 32-degree angle for an orbit plan of another known planets. This hypothesis was met with a mixed reception. Noted Planet X skeptic Brian G. Morrison of the Minor Planet Center pointed out that these discrepancies were 1/100th the size of those noticed by Lee Verrier and could easily be due to observational error. In 1972, Joseph Brady of the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory studied irregularities in the motion of Halley's Comet. Brady claimed that they could have been caused by a Jupiter-sized planet beyond Neptune at 59 AU that is retrograde orbit around the Sun. However, both Morrison and Planet X proponent P. Kenneth Settleman attacked the hypothesis, showing that Halley's Comet randomly and irregularly ejects jets of material, causing changes to its own orbital trajectory, and that such a massive object as Brady's Planet X would have severely affected the orbits of known outer planets. Although its mission did not involve a search for Planet X, IRAS Space Observatory made headlines briefly in 1983 due to the unknown object that was at first described as possibly as large as a giant planet Jupiter. As you know, Douglas and I were talking about how it was a very large planet, and it has eccentric orbit, and it's not always there. It kind of goes back and it kind of comes closer. Now they're saying that it's likely there. It's very, very hard for them to detect it. Or maybe they did detect it and they didn't want us to know about it. It's up for speculation about what really was the reason. In 1988, A. Jackson and R. M. Killeen studied In 1988, A. Jackson and R. M. Killeen studied the stability of Pluto's resonance with Neptune by placing test planet X's with various masses and at various distances from Pluto. Pluto and Neptune's orbit are in a 3-2 resonance, which prevents their collision, or even any close approaches. Regardless of their separation in the z-axis, it was found that the hypothetical object's mass had to exceed 5 Earth masses to break the renaissance, and the perimeter space is quite large, and a large variety of objects could have existed beyond Pluto without disturbing the renaissance. 4 test orbits of a trans-Plutonian planet have been integrated forward for million years. I have to read that one again. That was wild. 4 tests observed of a trans-Plutonian planet have been integrated forward for 4 million years in order to determine the effects of such a body in the stability of Neptune's Pluto 3.2 resonance. Planets beyond Pluto. Planets beyond Pluto with masses of 0.1 and 10 Earth masses and orbits of 48.3 and 5.5 AU, respectively, 7.55 AU, respectively, do not distribute a 3.2 resonance. Test planets of 5 Earth masses with semi-major axes of 52.5, 62.5 AU disrupt the 4 million year liberation of Pluto's agreement of perihelion. This is false right here, but they're saying Planet X disproved. Harrington died in January 1993 without having found Planet X, 6 months before E. Miles Standish had used data from the Voyager 2's 1989 flyby of Neptune, which had revised the planet's total mass downward by 0.5%, an amount comparable to the mass of Mars, to recalculate its gravitational effect on Uranus, when Neptune's nearly determined mass was used in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory developmental ephemeris. The supposed discrepancies of the Uranus orbit, and with them the need for Planet X, vanishes. There are no disparities in trajectories of any space probes, such as Pioneer 10, Voyager 1, and Voyager 2, that can attribute to the gravitational pull of a large undiscovered object out of their solar system. Most astronomers agree Planet X, the Wells definition, does not exist. But actually, this has been proven false. Planet X is actually most likely true, because they're now saying in 2017 that there is some object out there, and I was saying before, and it said in this article, that there are objects orbiting some kind of a planet. There are there's comets going around something. And they're going to try to get the satellite next year to make sure they can find it. So no, this has been debunked, that it is true, it is real. They just, in my opinion, but it's also a fact, that they're saying now that it's there. And other observatories in California, the 2 guys were saying that's real. And there's ancient Babylonian mythology about it. You know, in Lowell, if he didn't see a planet there, he wouldn't have seen a planet there. It's like this man saying there's a planet there, and there's something orbiting something, there's something there. So this is what's a likely scenario, everybody. They likely did find Nibiru, and they just didn't tell us. They probably lied, in my opinion. That's probably what it was. They passed right by it, and they said it wasn't. That's what I think. Or it was so far out, it just wasn't in the area where they were able to detect it. But I think that either they're lying, or they just didn't look in the right area, in my opinion. After the discovery of Pluto, the cherry on no more trans-Neptunian objects were found until 1992. So there was something found, all from the 70s and all, until 1992 they found something. And they found a lot of them. There's these different objects out there. 15760 Alboin was the first trans-Neptunian object to be discovered after Pluto and Charon, measuring about 108 kilometers in diameter, which was discovered in 1992. David C. Jewett, Jane X. So it's some sort of like an asteroid or something. Or meteor, whatever. Probably, I'd say an asteroid, not meteor. Since the thousands of such objects have been discovered, most are now recognizing as part of the Kuiper Belt. This is where Nibiru and those other objects are at. The Kuiper Belt is a circumstellar disk, the outer system, extending from orbit of Neptune at 30 astronomical units to approximately 50 AU from the Sun. Similar to the asteroid belt, but it's far larger, 20 times as wide, 20 to 200 times as massive. So it's like the asteroid belt, but much larger, and there's planets and different things out there. It's kind of scary, like this dark void of space, and there's this gigantic, menacing planet that just comes out of nowhere, somewhere in there, lost in the abyss. Since thousands of such objects have been discovered, most are now recognized as part of the Kuiper Belt, a swarm of icy bodies left over from the solar system foundation that orbited near the ecliptic plane just beyond Neptune. Though none were as large as Pluto, some of these distant trans-Neptunian objects, such as Sienna, were initially described as media as new planets. Sienna is a dwarf planet in the outermost reaches of the solar system, orbiting the Sun beyond the orbit of Neptune. Described in 203, the planetoid's surface is one of the reddest known among the solar system body. Spectroscopy has revealed Sedina's surface. In 2005, astronomer Mike Brown and his team announced the discovery of 2003 UB313, named Eris after the Greek goddess of discord and strife. Discord, Eris is the massive and second largest dwarf planet in the solar system. It is a trans-Neptunian object. Some water. So this is the orbit. So the center in the figure right here, you see this, the colorful circle, the little circles. That's our solar system. In the other one, the big red thing, that's the Kuiper Belt. That's those Nibiru and Sedina and Eris and all those other objects that are around in the Kuiper Belt that orbit. So that's where Nibiru is. It's somewhere in that belt. Somewhere in there. See how far it could go away from our planet. You know, so that's very fascinating. And they found them. They found objects. So this does not mean that Nibiru is somewhere in there. Discovered its extreme orbit raised questions about its origins. Its pre-Hellenian is distant approximately 76 AU 11.4 billion that no currently observed mechanisms can explain. Sedina's eccentric distance orbit, and affected by forces such as the galactic tides. Galactic tides. That's a new one. Galactic tides is a tidal force experienced by objects subject to the gravitational field of galaxies such as the Milky Way, particularly areas of the galactic collisions, the disruption of dwarf or satellite galaxies, and the Milky Way's tidal effect on the Oort cloud solar. No. Hypothesis to explain its orbit. Neptune or other giant planets too bound to the Sun to be affected by outside forces such as the galactic tides. Hypotheses to explain its orbit include was affected by a passing star, that it was captured from the planetary system, or that it was tugged into its current position by transplanetary Neptune planet. It might be from another solar system and it was brought in our solar system somehow, or it might be in both solar systems. The most obvious solution to determine Sedina's particular orbit would be to locate the number of objects in a similar region whose various orbital configurations would provide an indication as their history of Sedina had been pulled into the orbit by trans-Neptunian planet by other objects found in its region would have a similar perihelion to Sedina. In 2008, Tadashi Mukai and Patrick Larocca studied a distant Mars or Earth-sized planet currently in a highly eccentric orbit between 10 and 20 AU, an orbital period of 1,000 years, with an inclination of 20 to 40, was responsible for the structure of the Kuiper belt. They proposed that the perturbations of the planet excited the eccentricities and inclinations of the trans-Neptunian objects, truncated the planet, I don't know these words, the planetesimal disk, and detached the orbits of objects like Sedina and Neptune. During Neptune's migration, this planet is positioned to have been captured in an outer resonance of Neptune, to have evolved into higher perihelion orbit due to the Kozai mechanisms, leaving the remaining trans-Neptunian objects on a stable orbit. Elongated orbits of the group of the Kepler belt objects. In 2012, Rodney Gnomes modeled the orbits of 92 Kuiper belt objects and found that 6 of those objects were far more elongated than model predicted. He concluded that the simplest explanation was the gravitational pull of a distant planetary companion, such as Neptune-sized object at 1500 AU. This Neptune-sized object would cause the perihelia of objects with semi-major axes greater than 300 AU to oscillate, delivering them into planet-crossing orbits like those of 308933 2006 and 87269 2000 are detached orbits like Sedenia's. I don't even know what these things are. In 2014, astronomers announced the discovery of 2012 VP, a large object with Sedena like 4,200 orbit and perihelion of roughly 80 AU, which led them to suggest that it offered evidence of potential trans-Neptunian planet. Trujillo and Shepard agreed. Object clustering arrangement of pre-Helia for 2012 VP 1113 and other extremely distant TNOs suggests the existence of a super-Earth of between 2 and 15 Earth masses beyond 200 AU and possibly an inclined orbit at 1500 AU. In 2014, astronomers at the Universidad Complutense, I pronounced that wrong most likely, in Madrid suggested that the available data actually indicates more than one trans-Neptunian planet. Subsequent work further suggests that the evidence is robust enough, but rather than connected with the longitudes of the ascending nodes and the arrangements of perihelia, semi-major axis and nodal distances could be the signposts, and additional work based on improved orbits of 39 objects still indicate that more than one perturber could be present at one of them could orbit the Sun at 300 to 400 AU. (2016), as I was talking about this earlier, Brown and Constantine Bainton published an article contributing to